On my wedding night, my mother-in-law stormed into our honeymoon suite and screamed, "You need to sleep in separate rooms." My husband laughed and said, "Actually, I have a better idea." Her face dropped when he handed her. I was still in my wedding dress, the lace trailing across the plush carpet of our honeymoon suite, when the door slammed open so hard it rattled the paintings on the wall. My mother-in-law, furious, stormed in like she owned the place. "You need to sleep in separate rooms," she shrieked, eyes wild, face red. For a second, I thought it was a joke. I actually laughed. I mean, it was my wedding night. But the way she stood there, gripping the doorframe like she was about to physically rip me away from her son, made it very clear, she was dead serious. My husband, Alex, just sighed like he'd been expecting this. Then, with the calmest expression, he said, "Actually, I have a better idea." And then, right there in front of me, he reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a thick envelope, and handed it to her. Her face dropped. She snatched it, opened it, and as she read, her whole body froze. "Let me back up. Because you need to understand how we got here. Alex and I had been together for 4 years before getting married. I knew his mom, Helen, was difficult. She had a habit of showing up unannounced, inserting herself into our plans, and making every situation about her. If we took a trip, she'd cry about being left out. If Alex got me a gift, she'd complain that he never put that much thought into hers. But I never imagined she'd go this far. During wedding planning, things got worse. She hated everything I chose. The venue? Too modern. My dress? Too plain. The food? Disrespectful to her taste. She even called the florist behind my back and tried to change my bouquet to her favorite flowers. But Alex always had my back. He told her, over and over, "Mom, this is our wedding, not yours." She'd back off, temporarily. But I should have known she was waiting for her moment. The wedding itself? A disaster. Because of her. Right before I walked down the aisle, one of my bridesmaids rushed up, panic all over her face. "Your dress, something's wrong with it." I looked down. My stomach dropped. There were stains on the bottom. Dark stains. Someone had spilled coffee all over the hem of my wedding dress. Except, there was no coffee anywhere nearby. Later, I found out from my maid of honor that Helen had been in the room alone with my dress for about 10 minutes before I put it on. But that was just the start. During the ceremony, she loudly sighed every time Alex and I exchanged vows. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, she stood up. "I just think they should take some time to really think about this," she said, as if we hadn't been together for years. Alex shut it down immediately. "Sit down, Mom." She did, but not before glaring at me like I had personally ruined her life. And the reception? She found a way to steal the spotlight at every turn. She grabbed the mic during speeches to give an unplanned toast that was mostly about her. She complained loudly about the music. At one point, she even took off her heels and sat in the middle of the dance floor, refusing to move, because she was tired and it was too loud. It was exhausting. But I thought, at least we're married now. At least it's over. I was so wrong. Fast forward to our honeymoon suite. Alex and I had just arrived, still riding the high of the night. The hotel had sent up champagne, and we were finally alone, until that door burst open. And now she was standing there, trying to separate us on our wedding night. That's when Alex pulled out the envelope. And as she read the papers inside, her expression shifted from rage to pure panic. Because in her hands were legal documents. And that's when it all started to unravel. Her hands trembled as she held the papers. The color drained from her face, and for the first time that night, she was completely silent. I didn't know what was in that envelope yet, but I knew one thing: whatever Alex had just handed her was big. Helen's mouth opened, then shut. She looked up at Alex, her expression a mix of anger and desperation. "You wouldn't." Alex leaned back against the dresser, arms crossed. "I already did. Let me explain." A month before the wedding, Helen had pulled one last stunt. She had called Alex's job, his actual boss, and told them he was thinking about quitting. Not just that, she told them he was emotionally unstable and needed a break. She lied to his employer to sabotage his career because she thought if he lost his job, he'd be forced to move back home with her. It backfired. His boss called him directly, confused, and Alex immediately knew it was her. That was the final straw. He went no contact. Didn't tell her. Just cut her off. She must have realized she had pushed too far, because the next week, she called me crying, begging me to convince him to talk to her. I refused. So, she retaliated. The wedding sabotage. The dress. The public humiliation. And now, breaking into our honeymoon suite to demand we sleep in separate rooms like we were kids at summer camp. But Alex? He had planned ahead. Back to the hotel room. Helen held the papers like they burned her hands. "This is insane," she whispered. I stepped closer, finally getting a look. Restraining order. Against her. I blinked. "Wait, what? You can't be serious," she choked out. "I'm your mother." Alex's voice was calm. "And you have done nothing but try to control me, sabotage my relationship, and ruin my life for years. You ignored every boundary I set, so now, the law will do it for me." She looked at me. "You did this." I raised my eyebrows. Nope. This was all Alex. And it was. I had no idea he had gone to a lawyer after the work incident. But apparently, he had receipts. Every text. Every email. Every unwanted visit. The dress sabotage? That was just the cherry on top. The judge had signed an emergency order the day before the wedding. Helen just didn't know it yet. I sat up, already feeling a bad feeling creeping up my spine. "No," he rolled out of bed, threw on a shirt, and opened the door, only to be met by hotel security. 2 guards stood there, along with the hotel manager, who did not look happy. "Sir, we need to speak with you and your wife." I threw on a robe and rushed to the door, my heart pounding. "What's going on?" The manager's eyes darted between us. "I need to ask, did you threaten your mother last night?" I almost laughed. "What?" The guard's face was serious. "Your mother called the front desk at 3 a.m., claiming she was fearing for her life. She told us she fled your room after you became aggressive." Alex's jaw tightened. "You've got to be kidding me. She said you were holding her against her will in your honeymoon suite." My stomach dropped. That's when I noticed something. One of the guards was holding a set of keys. Room keys. They were going to enter our room if we hadn't opened the door. "She told us she left her belongings inside," the manager continued. "She insisted she needed a way back in." I felt sick. Helen had tried to get security to open our room in the middle of the night. She was trying to frame Alex for something. Alex ran a hand down his face. "Let me guess, she's not here anymore." The manager hesitated. "She checked out early this morning." "Of course she did. Run after you caused the damage." Classic. Alex took a slow breath. "Did she give you anything? Proof?" The manager shifted uncomfortably. "She was very emotional. She had scratches on her arms. She did that to herself," I cut in immediately. "Or she fell. Or something. Alex never laid a hand on her." The manager held up his hands. "I'm not accusing anyone. But we do have to take accusations like this seriously." Alex pulled out his phone. "I have a restraining order against her. Signed yesterday. Do you want to see it?" The manager's face changed in an instant. Helen's next move: we left the hotel that afternoon. But the moment we landed back home, our phones blew up. Missed calls. Hundreds of messages. And one voicemail, from a police officer. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, this is Officer Martinez with the City Police Department. We received a complaint from a Helen Carter stating she was the victim of domestic abuse at the hotel name last night. We need you to come in for a statement." I nearly dropped my phone. Helen had called the police. False allegations. The next few hours were a blur of panic, phone calls, and scrambling for evidence. Alex's lawyer, who he had been in contact with for months because of Helen, got involved immediately. The security footage from the hotel? It showed Helen entering our room uninvited and then leaving perfectly fine. No distress. No running. No fear for her life. The restraining order? Showed that she had already been legally ordered to stay away. When we finally went to the police station, Alex's lawyer laid it all out. The officer was professional, but I could tell, he knew Helen was lying. She had no proof. Just drama. In the end, they didn't press charges. But they did file a report. And that report? It came back to bite her. The final blow: we went no contact again, fully this time. Blocked her. Changed locks. Told family what happened. But Helen? She still wasn't done. She had one more trick up her sleeve. A month later, Alex got a call from his bank. "Mr. Carter, we have a flagged transaction attempt on your joint savings account." I saw his face go white. We didn't have a joint savings account. But guess who did? Helen. Turns out, years ago, when Alex first got a job in college, his mom helped him open his first bank account. And somehow, she had never taken her name off of it. She had tried to withdraw $10,000 from our honeymoon fund. Alex had forgotten the account even existed. He never used it. But Helen? She had been waiting. Waiting for a moment when she thought she could screw us over one last time. But this time? She left a paper trail. And Alex? He was done. Helen had officially ruined herself. The moment she tried to steal our money, it was game over. The bank flagged the transaction as fraud, and because of her previous false police report, it was treated as part of a larger pattern. But the best part? She had signed the withdrawal slip in person. So when the bank called the authorities, there was zero doubt that she had tried to steal from Alex. And this time, she couldn't play the victim. Her life fell apart within weeks. Helen went from playing the poor, abandoned mother to being completely exposed as a liar and a fraud. Her bank accounts? Frozen. Her reputation? Destroyed. Family that once defended her now wanted nothing to do with her. Even her friends turned their backs when they realized she was willing to call the cops on her own son over a lie. And then, the final blow came. The legal payback. Once the fraud case was filed, Alex's lawyer suggested we dig deeper. So we did. Turns out, Helen had a lot of skeletons in her closet. Unpaid debts she had been dodging for years. Credit card fraud, she had taken out a card under Alex's name when he was in college, he never knew. Government benefits fraud, she was falsely claiming financial hardship while still getting money from various family members. The fraud investigation brought all of it to light. And guess what? She ended up owing tens of thousands in fines and penalties. The icing on the cake, the day we found out she had lost her house, Alex and I celebrated. Not because we were cruel. But because, for years, she had manipulated, controlled, and hurt the people around her. And now? She had no one left to manipulate. Final revenge. 1 year later, we were sitting in our beautiful new home, far away from Helen's drama, when we got a letter. It was from Helen. She had nothing left. No home. No friends. No money. She begged Alex to forgive her. She said she had learned her lesson and just wanted to be part of our lives again. Alex read the letter. Then he tossed it in the trash. Without saying a word. I smiled. We had won. Not by fighting. Not by screaming. But by letting Helen destroy herself. And the best part? Alex and I took that honeymoon fund, the same one Helen tried to steal, and booked the most luxurious trip of our lives. This time, Helen was nowhere in sight. The end.